Welcome, everybody, to the Evolution Security Podcast. I am a lone tactical twin tonight because, once again, the Army called my brother and said he had better things to do than a podcast tonight. You know, we disagree with that, but we weren't going to take that up with Fort Bragg. So Eric is not here, but I am here with USPSA Grandmaster, renowned pistol instructor, and just frankly, an incredible shooter, gentleman named Tim Herron. This is his second show with us. Thanks for coming on again, Tim.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate being here.
Awesome. Well, we'll have you go ahead this time and give just a condensed bio. If anyone wants to hear a little bit more about your background, you were on episode 77, which was a lot of fun too. So I'm looking forward to getting nerdy and talking about shooting with you. But before we do that, why don't you give us a quick bio?
Yeah. So I'm Tim Herron. I own Tim Herron Shooting LLC. I get to travel all over the country, nationwide, and teach people how to improve their performance as a handgun shooter. So I've been teaching full time since 2018, and this 2023 now marks my year number 5 of getting to do this full time. So I kind of started shooting in about 2010, just kind of as a hobbyist and somebody that was just really interested in obviously being able to protect myself better with a handgun. And I found competitive shooting pretty early on and was hooked. And that's kind of where my background kind of stems from as a competitive shooter. And I'm a multi-division grandmaster in USPSA and a master class shooter in IDPA, which is the highest that you can go in IDPA. And I love getting to travel all over, and I love getting to teach people how to shoot better. So
And you like to put out Instagram videos that make us all mad and decide if we're going to practice for the day or not.
I also think I am also my worst enemy, so my own worst enemy. So I put out these Instagram videos the last couple of days on a project I've been working on, and I think today I finally accomplished it. Here we are, like 1,400 rounds later, on day number 3 of just solid doing it over and over and over again. But I'm going back and looking at the video to make sure I didn't jump the gun on anything before before I shoot myself in the foot, so to speak, on whether or not I accomplished my goal. But my goal was to shoot an all alpha sub 2-second bill drill, but into the upper head box of a USPSA target, and all of the A's there are in the 2-inch by 4-inch ocular window or whatever of the upper A zone. And it has not. At first, I kind of jumped into it thinking, like, how hard can it be, right? You just hang onto the gun and let her rip. And no, I tell you, as much frustration as I have had doing this, I've also learned a metric ton about like my own visual ability to kind of track the sights and call shots at ever increasingly, faster speeds. And it's been a journey. Let's just put it that way.
So it sounds like the frustration was well spent, though.
uh, yes and no. It's definitely not one of those things where I would recommend to anybody. Like I think there's better ways to spend 1,400 rounds of ammo. But like I was focused on one specific goal, and I was not going to stop until I achieved that goal. So yeah, here we are.
I'm hunting for my pencil. Well, yeah, I saw you share some of that video, and I almost said, "Hey, I'll see you tonight." I think I even saw that video today. I can't remember. It's been a
Yeah.
long day, but well, so what started this conversation and me asking you to come on was an interesting thing that was not on my radar at all. Now, and that is the concept of using the 32 MOA circle
Hmm.
only on the hollow sun optics. Now, I'm not aware of any other company that has that available, but maybe we can talk about that here in a little bit because I've got something that's germane to that. But
Sure.
let me set it up like this. So we had Kyle DeFore on a few episodes ago,
Hmm.
and we were just talking about red dots, and he said that he preferred 6 MOA, and he felt that if it was up to him, all his students wouldn't shoot anything but a 6 MOA dot. And then he actually mentioned you. He goes, there's some people that are running the 32 MOA circle only. And I'm pretty sure he mentioned you by name, but somehow I got, started looking you up and thinking, man, I'm going to ask Tim about that.
Sure.
But the same day, I actually stumbled upon a video that Ernest Langdon did about the
Hmm.
same thing, and that he had been playing with it. So why don't you let people in on this? It's almost becoming like a secret thing that people are discovering, and there's hardly anything about it that I can find on YouTube. Just a handful of videos, but
So
so let's hear about it.
I think a lot of it is personal preference more than anything else. I know a lot of like top ranked to high end shooters that prefer a more fine dot, 2 MOA, 3 MOA, generally limiting themselves up to about a 5 MOA dot. Most guys like the finer dots because they feel like they're more precise at longer distances, or they get a little more precision in their shooting. That also kind of becomes a double-edged sword.
Hmm.
For all the precision that I believe that you get in a really fine dot, a 1 or 2 MOA or 2.5 MOA dot, you also tend to lose in your ability to sometimes to track it or to find it on initial presentation, or if it is lost in the window because of, say, a bad grip or uh, a bad support hand meet or a bad presentation, to the target, not knowing necessarily where where the dot comes from or how to track it. The other thing with the finer dots as well that most people never want to talk about until it happens to them and they're left with no excuses are losing a finer dot in in adverse conditions.
Hmm.
In rain, where you've got water droplets in the back of the optic, or in bright sunlight, whether you've either got sun wash, kind of washing out the back of the optic, with the sun directly at your back, kind of pointing in the back of the optic, which washes out the dot. Or even worse, when you're aiming into the sun and you get sun wash that washes out the finer dots. The other thing that can be said for the finer dots too is that most everybody tries to run or does run the absolute maximum intensity that they possibly can from the dot to get it as glowing and as bright as possible. Well, if you're going to do that, you're basically taking a 2.5 MOA dot and you're increasing the intensity to turn it into basically a 5 MOA or 6 MOA halo
Hmm.
effect, just so you can see it better. And if
Yeah.
that's the case, why are you running such a fine dot? Why not run a slightly larger dot that's easier to pick up, doesn't doesn't tend to get lost in bright sunlight, um, and also isn't masked by, like I said, by moisture or fog or things like that, like the finer dots are. So I played around with this quite a bit, and I've got a multitude of different dots on different pistols in uh, different makes and models of red dots. I've got quite a bit of time behind the Holosuns, the 507Cs, both in the 507C red and the 507C GR, which is the green. The
Hmm.
thing I like about the Holosuns is you get the opportunity to kind of switch between either the 2 MOA really refined dot or the 32 MOA ring. Playing around with the ring, I'm kind of that person that wants to kind of push against the grain a little bit. So when another instructor or another peer or a high level shooter is like, man, you've got to have precision. It needs to be the finest dot possible. To me, I was like, man, you sure are speaking in a lot of absolutes there to not,
Mm-hmm.
for something that is still technologically is still fairly new, right? There's a lot of technique, there's a lot of experimentation, there's a lot of things that are going on that we still really haven't been able to like pull out or render like what is the best for a particular person or group of people or for anybody for that matter.
Mm-hmm.
So I kind of took it upon myself to do a lot of extra testing. So I bought my first 507 and I was like, man, I'm just going to run the 32 MOA ring and see what I think about it. So um, I went from the dot to the ring and I ran the ring for about 2 months, 2 to 3 months straight, and just in everything from doing like really, really fast tracking to other objectionable tests like transitioning the gun from one target to the other, doing bill drills, doing shot calling, doing precision group shooting, and finding out kind of like what I preferred and what maybe I'd liked and what I didn't like about it. The thing I like about the 32 MOA ring is that you're given so much information from that ring that you don't necessarily need to run it as bright as you would on like the 2 MOA dot, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because it's much more bold. So now I get to turn the ring intensity down so that it becomes easier it becomes easier and more precise to align it to certain things and still see a ton of information. The other thing with the 32 MOA ring that I really liked is that it definitely helps to filter out a lot of the unnecessary or erratic movement or behavior in the dot
Mm-hmm.
upon when the gun tracks in recoil or when you present the gun. And most people like they get sucked into the dot when the dot is really hard to see or it's really bright and they can't see anything but that glowing dot in the middle of the window. Anytime that you're totally sucked into the dot, you see that dot move erratically all over
Mm-hmm.
the place. It's almost become super hard to refine the sight to a point where you feel 100% confident taking that precision shot. So we do all sorts of other things like occlude the dot so that we can run the 2 MOA ring behind like a piece of tape or the 2 MOA dot or 5 MOA dot or whatever behind a piece of tape and learn how to become more target focused, which is
Mm-hmm.
great, right? We call that the bend and aiming method. It's been something around since red dots were kind of invented in the mid to late 80s for carbines and rifles. Um, Learning how to be target focused with that red dot though, and then learning how to kind of learn like to turn the red dot intensity down or turn it up based on the conditions. With the 32 MOA ring, I get enough information from the ring that I find myself less and less having to adjust the intensity of the ring higher or lower.
Hmm.
And because the ring is it's easier to see and pick up, I tend to have a less of a tendency to want to be focused directly in on the ring, which then filters out any of that unnecessary noise or movement. So the ring
Interesting.
itself doesn't become as erratic. When I point it to a target, the ring is just nice and solid. I end up trusting my sight picture much easier and much better and quicker, which then allows me to fire the shot much sooner.
Well, it's interesting. So as I was learning about this, again, well, getting keyed in on this through the conversation with Kyle, and then with you, and then a few others. Like I talked to Annette Evans about it, and so I had to make sure before we got on here that I went out and tried it.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I had been dry firing it a little bit, which of course didn't tell me a ton because I'm so new to it. But I went and shot it this weekend, And my experience was this, and again, it was limited, but it seemed like, and I did not put it on the timer and try and compare. I just didn't have time. I just kind of wanted to get a feel for it. But it did seem like at shorter distances, let's just say 5 to 7 yards, I was quite accurate and quite fast. I
Hmm.
mean, just the feel from it, because, and that was exactly what the deal was that I was trusting, like you said, I was trusting my sight picture of, and just didn't worry about nailing a precision shot with that dot. And it was pretty interesting. Now, next time I go out, I will definitely put some standards down and see how I'm doing between the two. And I'm digressing a little bit. We were talking to Craig Douglas and Mike Brown the other night, and I brought this up, and in a nutshell, they both called me a nerd to even talk about it. but hey, anything that might help me become a better shooter, like the excuse me, like the red dot itself, because I've had vision issues, and now I have what I call bionic vision. I have synthetic lenses that help me see a lot better in normal shooting, but I still have to wear these glasses for the computer.
Hmm.
But so when but then what I found, now this may have been a another issue, but I took it out to 25,
Hmm.
and there I was not as precise as I felt I could be. I, and again, and full disclosure, because of my eyes, I've only been trying to shoot tight groups at 25 yards for about the last year and a half. So
Right.
I'm still new to it. So I can't say that it was just the circle, but it felt like I was a little bit looser than with my dot. I guess I'm getting around to saying, what do you ever change to the tighter dot to do more precision shooting out, say 25 or more? Or what are your
I
thoughts
mean,
on that and
when I need a
experience?
little bit more refinement, let's say, if I were shooting a match, or I just, like I know that, like, say, a particular stage or drills that I'm going to be working that day do require maybe a little bit more precision, I will turn I will turn the dot, like change it from the 32 MOA ring to the 2 MOA dot. The thing about the 2 MOA dot, though, that I do a little bit differently than everybody else is, instead of turning the intensity up as high as it'll go, or even to a bright intensity, like a Holliston, I think, has got 10 settings. So instead of turning it to a 10 or even dropping it to an 8, I will work it from the bottom. So I turn it all the way as low as it'll go, to where you almost can't even see it. And I will turn it up just until I see a faint rendering of the dot in the window, and that's where I leave it. So
Interesting.
for precision work, what I don't want to have happen is, I don't want my eyes drawn into the back of the window. What I want my eyes free to look through the glass and just simply superimpose the dot on the target. Um, a lot of that, I think, but I can be. I mean, I've shot 90 and above B8s on 20, with 25-yard B8s, timed even to Kyle's standards, for a hack qual, like on the regular with the 32 MOA ring. In fact, the way the 32 MOA ring is designed is it's 32 MOA, which is precisely 5.5 inches. I mean, it superimposes itself to 5.5 inches, which is the exact 9 ring and end on a B8 target. Weird how that's like that, right? But
Yeah.
that's why. So basically, if you are basically taking a ring and you are circling the 5.5 inch circle on a B8, then you press the trigger and you can hold the ring still on that, like circling that
Hmm.
that black on the B8. That's going to be a 10 or X ring hit.
Well, and when I actually I saw a video of John Correa talking about that very thing,
Hmm.
and so what it reminded me of, that concept, is we had Lenny Basham on a few episodes ago, and he was Olympic gold medalist in the
Mhm.
'70s. And we were talking. What was fun is I had talked to him before, and we never talked about gear. And finally, I talked him into, we started talking about gear and the sighting system. And he said that they used a ghost ring,
Right.
and I am going to assume it was the same concept.
Very similar. Absolutely. So the other things I like about the ring that nobody likes to talk about too, and a lot of folks I kind of make fun of the ring, as in like the 32 MOA ring on the Holosun is like a red dot with training wheels, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I think there's something to be said for having a little bit more information at my disposal in the back of the window to make more informed decisions on. The thing that is great about the ring is if you're a little newer to red dots, there are a lot of times where your presentation, like your skill in being able to present the gun to your eye every single time, isn't as consistent as somebody who's been doing it for
Mm-hmm.
a number of years.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Having the 32 MOA ring allows me um, much needed like kind of directional correction. So like if I was to present the gun and have the gun pointed to the left with a 2 MOA dot, that could mean that the dot itself is not even in the window. With the
Mm-hmm.
32 MOA ring, I might see a half of a crescent on the
Mm-hmm.
inside left side of the glass. Seeing the right side of the crescent of the ring tells me immediately, hey, I need to correct the dot, or I need to correct that ring or correct my presentation just a bit to the right to be able to put the ring in the center of the glass,
Mm-hmm.
or high or low, or or left or right, whatever the case may be. The other thing it allows me to do is my eyes able to pick up that ring so much faster that on really, really fast presentations. So now we're talking like 3 yard to 7 yard targets, where sometimes I may just kind of grossly aim the gun by aligning the back plate or aligning the optic window frame to the
Mm-hmm.
middle of the target.
Mm-hmm.
Well, because the 2 MOA dot is so fine, I may not see it. I still may see a semblance of that ring someplace in the glass. So it further enhances my ability to kind of refine the sights just to a little bit higher level at faster rates of speed. So I particularly see the benefits of the 32 MOA ring, um, especially 15, maybe 18 to 15 yards and in. Um, like I said, I have no problem with 25 yard, let's say 25-yard head boxes. Like you're drawing the gun and presenting it to a 25-yard head box, which is 6 inches by 6 inches. The 32 MOA ring lines the head box perfectly
Mm-hmm.
inside. If the ring is inside the head box, no doubt about it, that shot's going to be there.
Well, and you're bringing up at least one side thought that I can see how I am doing, because I know the standards that I can meet on the IDPA 5x5 classifier. I know that's not the original 5x5, but they kind of commandeered it. That I can, and I've got notes in my journal of how I've done on that. It'd be nice. That may be a place to start,
It would be.
and maybe even cold, right? So now, so that's really cool. I guess I'll just ask you one question about that. So being USPSA and you go around the country, do you know very many other people that are doing that too, running the
I've
circle?
I've never really asked around. It's kind of one of those things. Like I said, I think a lot of it is preference. I will
Hmm.
say a really close friend of mine, a gentleman by the name of BJ Norris. BJ is probably one of the winningest steel challenge shooters to walk the planet. I mean, he's won the steel challenge world championship 3 or 4 times. I mean, he's always a threat to win national titles and world titles in just about any shooting discipline that he shoots. BJ has predominantly shot the last couple of years shooting steel challenge with a carry optics pistol, and shoots with a Leupold Delta Point Pro with the 7.5 MOA, the triangle. And
Ah.
He runs a 7.5 MOA triangle, shooting all the way to 35-yard distance steel with like 10-inch plates, or 6-inch or 8-inch plates on some of the other courses of fire, where a 7.5-inch MOA triangle will like basically cover the entire plate or almost cover the plate.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what he prefers. He prefers that even more so than a very fine dot. Now, we've talked at length about those same things, and he kind of feels the same way I do. He's like, dude, it's much easier to pick up. It's easier to see, it's easier to spot, and it's easier to track. It's a little bit bigger. So I kind of akin the 32 MOA ring to the same thing as like why we put maybe a larger front sight or a high visibility front sight on iron sight guns,
Mm-hmm.
and why we don't run like 2-dot rear sights or like the Glock goalpost on the rear
Mm-hmm.
sight, because it takes away, it creates a bunch of visual noise and takes away our ability to refine the front sight like we need to between
Mm-hmm.
the rear notch. So we generally kind of stray to, we kind of go the direction of, let's say, a fully black serrated rear sight with nothing else on it, and then a high visibility red, front sight. So whether
Mm-hmm.
it be green or red fiber optic, or like Trigicon HDs, which might have a tritium insert as well as like a very neon orange or neon green, circle painted onto the back of the front sight, so that we can pick up the front sight much faster, whether it be in day conditions or night conditions. So the 32 MOA ring, when you really think about it, is no different than a 27 to 30 MOA front sight on an iron sight pistol.
Yeah.
So bullseye shooters for years, with iron sights, right, have been some of the most precision based and most precise pistol shooters to walk the earth. And they've used like solid black front sights and solid black rear sights. And they predominantly run a wide front sight with a narrow rear notch, so that they have very, very thin light bars between those, so that they get ultimate precision, right?
Mm-hmm.
No real difference than, say, running a 32 MOA ring on a holosun optic inside the glass. Same
Interesting.
concept.
Yeah, well, I can say that I'm looking forward to trying it out some more, and I could go to a match this weekend, but I don't think I can because I've got a gig. But I've got another match that I can go to and just run it and see how I do. Now, a little bit of anecdotal information, even before I even was turned on to this, was that 2 or 3 months ago, I was shooting a match, an IDPA match here in Tulsa, and for some reason, I thought my battery was going bad, and it was a Holosun 507C, and I decided, hey, I'm going to change the battery. I put the damn thing in backwards. So so every time I drew my pistol, my
Hmm.
dot was off. So
Yep.
I would click it on, and I would get the big old, what's the, just the dot and the circle, and I was kind of burning through the stages. Now it slowed me down having to turn my dot on. I don't know if it's because I was like, whatever, I'm just going to shoot this match. I'm not shooting it with the sight that I want. But hey, I actually, from an accuracy and speed standpoint,
Hmm.
and I didn't put the two and two together, but I actually shot one of the best matches I had shot, even though I was having to turn my dot on. So, like I said, kind of just a little data point, even though I didn't even take it in that much at the time.
Hmm. Now, I will say, so I do know a few shooters or students that I've had in classes that will try, uh, like the 32 MOA ring along with the 2 MOA dot. So they're like, so I get the best of everything. I can track the ring or track the dot much better because I'm seeing all of this information, but then I
Mm-hmm.
can be precise by just putting the dot, the center of the dot on whatever I want to shoot. Now I kind of counter that with, personally, I feel that's entirely too much information. And to
Mm-hmm.
me, it becomes very difficult for my vision to kind of differentiate between the two on the,
Mm-hmm.
especially on the fly very quickly.
Yeah.
I find that when I want to do that, like, oh, I just want to see a blur of green or a blur of red, that the ring is great. But then I want to, oh, I'm going to switch my vision to looking at that 2 MOA dot. Then I tend to I get sucked in. So instead of going to full target focus, I end up then, like my eyes are sucked into the back of the dot and I'm looking for the dot itself to align to the target. So now I'm accommodating my vision back and forth between target and the dot. So I'm losing the actual benefits of what a red dot allows me to do because I'm looking for more finite information.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm more of an advocate of one or the other, not both.
Yeah. So I've got my gun cleared. I think
Mhm.
people get a little flipped out about that. Um, so I just put it on the dot and the ring,
Uh-huh.
and and also, like I said, even though I've got what I call bionic vision, I've still got a little bit of astigmatism.
Right.
So there's still a little bit of distortion. So adding that dot in the middle messes with me too.
Right. And the other thing about astigmatism, and that's something else we hadn't really talked about yet.
Hmm.
So, with the 2 MOA dot, most of the time, anybody that suffers from any sort of astigmatism, no matter how acute or how severe it is, the dot is never a crisp, clean dot.
Mm-mm, not
It's
at
it,
all.
it's a blur, it's a streak, it's a blob, it's something different. So they're losing the precision anyway.
Hmm.
But then if they go to the 32 MOA ring, a lot of times the ring itself is precision because they're like, oh
Hmm.
my God, I can make out the full circle of the ring and everything is not just blurred out and it becomes this big blob of either green or red.
So now, and this is where we can kind of get a little bit nerdy too, but it all is there's going to be that huge continuum
Mhm.
of people's visual ability, that how even if they've got okay eyes,
Exactly. No two
you know
people are alike.
yeah. So as I am looking at this circle, of course there's the little hash marks. I don't know what we would call that, but the four hash marks that
Uh-huh. The
indicate
north,
these.
south, east, and west on the dot on the ring.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Now, this literally just came to me. Do you ever use those for any information,
I
or
don't.
is it? Yeah,
I don't. I look through it. So how bright is it right now in your vision?
it's fairly bright, and
Turn it
let
down.
me.
Turn it down
Yeah,
2 notches.
yeah, yeah, and which makes it more crisp.
Right?
And it's funny when you were talking about that earlier. I thought every time I dry fire it, I have to turn it down
Right.
for
A lot
sure.
of it's because you're indoors,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
So,
yeah.
and a lot of people make the same thing. If they're shooting indoors or they do a lot of dry fire practice, they'll turn it way, way down. But then as soon as they go outside, especially with a finer dot, right? Folks that use Trijicon SROs are the worst about this. And it's because the entirety of the glass on the SRO is pretty well exposed. The front of the glass is exposed. There's not much shielding it or shading it. So if they're
Hmm.
shooting into the sun or have an opportunity to transition the gun into, kind of pointing it even remotely towards sunlight, it'll, like, the sun has a bad effect on that glass to wash out the dot. And when it washes out
Interesting.
the dot on the SRO, you'll lose it completely. So people have a bad habit of just like plus, 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 and they want to turn it up as glowing and as bright as it can possibly be. And personally, I don't believe that's the right call on that.
Well, so you're kind of leaning into taking us into one of my next questions, and this of course can be a little controversial still for some reason. It's almost like a subsection of the trite 9 millimeter versus 45 caliber, or now
Mm-hmm.
appendix versus hip carry. I think that's the new one here, but then there's the subset of Holosun being a Chinese made optic. Um, I would just.
Of the 6 optics I have, three three of them are Holosun,
Hmm.
and one of them, I'm sorry, two of them are SIG, and one of them is a Trigicon.
So here, let me, since you're probably way more experienced with the different brands than me, here's my thought on it is that no matter where it's made, Holosun has, and I kind of do it as a parallel to what Glock did in the 80s.
Mhm.
To my perception is that everybody, including myself, kind of, oh, that's that Chinese company. It's probably, Holosun. I want an aim point, etc. And then to me, Holosun has kind of come around and flanked everybody
Yep.
when it comes to I can't think of an optic that has the features that Holosun offers with actually the quality too.
Right.
And um and so it's just, other than that Delta point, I'm not aware of any many optics that have, especially the three different reticles that you can get in just a standard Holosun.
Hmm.
But it's just, so Glock in the 80s, they, you know, Gaston Glock, the story goes, right, he didn't know a dadgum thing about pistols, and heard that there was going to be a contract for new pistols for the Austrian government. And he gets in on it. He kind of builds a gun from scratch, not very many preconceived notions. And then all the big guys here in the United States were, man, look at these guys churning out a gun with a plastic frame, etc. This is going to be over.
Right.
And then, of course, there's also the controversy about how, well, they dumped them on a bunch of police agencies for real cheap. Of course, they kind of grabbed the market. Well, long story short, again, I think it's similar.
Hmm?
Glock Glock kind of flanked everybody, and Holosun kind of flanked everybody. What are your thoughts on that?
I'm not super picky as far as optics are concerned. I mean, the number one thing is, I mean, whether they've got all the features I want or don't want, or things I like and things I don't like. Number one, it needs to be reliable.
Hmm.
Right. So a lot of my selection of dots and things like that are based on like solely how reliable is it? Right. So the thing about and reliable as well as ease of maintenance. The thing that was a big turnoff always about the Trigicon RMR was the fact that you have to remove the optic to be able to replace the battery.
Hmm.
Right. And then depending on how you mount the RMR to the slide, there was also like you needed to run like the thin film, the little thin plastic film or whatever, to keep the battery from contacting or rubbing, kind of rubbing a hole in things on the RMRs. Right. They've gotten a little bit better. I think Trigicon, like, obviously improved on that design quite a bit by allowing the SRO to have the same footprint as the RMR, but with a battery compartment that's a screw down cap right on the top of it. So now I don't have to take the optic off to change the battery and think about like re-zeroing, or it's not even that re-zeroing is such a bad thing, but you're using a number 440 thread pitch little machine screws, and you've got
Hmm.
to take those screws out, and honestly, retorquing those screws down is what's most detriment to whether or not those screws shear or not.
Hmm.
So most people trying to replace those, like not replace those screws, but like reuse those screws, that's what's causing a lot of issues. Then I
Yeah.
have to take into account that like aluminum mounting plates for the optic. Now if like I'm unscrewing the screws, I've got to clean the threads, I've got to reapply blue Loctite or whatever to put the screws back in, and then I've got to retorque steel screws into an aluminum plate. So you're constantly stretching threads and taking the opportunity or the chance of stretching threads or pulling threads out completely. So that's been like, the RMR is just not conducive to competitive use or a lot of use because of the fact that it's such a pain in the butt to do any kind of maintenance on it. So with the HoloSuns, the first HoloSuns, of course, had the batteries in the bottom of them, and then they went to like immediately on the version twos having the battery trays on the side. And the battery trays on the sides, like to me, that just really simplified their use. The just the ease of use, having a plus and minus, having a way to turn it off without having to like long hold or double hold or all kinds of other things to get through um, any of the other kind of advantages that that
Options and
optic has or
yeah.
options that it has, became kind of a pain in the butt with some of the other ones. And with the Holosun, it's very intuitive. It's very easy to use. I can turn it off when I'm not using it. I can immediately turn it on when I do want to use it, and everything works like it's supposed to. So that's why I really like the Holosun. The fact that I can get it in green, I prefer green optics than I more so than I do red. I think Trigicon probably. I think they might have had a green for the RMR at one point in time for just a few months or whatever, and then they were like, "Nope, nobody likes this. We're going to go back to red," and they've just used red like exclusively.
Mm-hmm.
Loophole Delta Point Pros, the biggest issue with the loopholes have been battery design, battery hold down design, and the contacts on the batteries um, coming undone or like under recoil. So they so far those dots have not been up to the task for tens and twenties and thirties of thousands of rounds of repetitive use without like breaking battery contacts or things coming unsoldered. The other thing about the loopholes I don't like is it's one button, and one button makes it a pain in the butt in order to get through any of the
Wow.
functions, to turn it up, to turn it down, to turn the automatic on or turn the automatic off, or whatever the case may be. It's just a pain. Um, and then you've got like the kind of the what I feel kind of lower grade optics. So I don't want to say lower grade, more entry grade optics. So you've got like the Vortex Razor and the Vortex Viper and
Mm-hmm.
what's the other one? It's the Vortex Viper and the Vortex whatever the other one is.
Venom.
The Venom.
Venom. Yep.
Sorry.
That's
And
all right.
between those two, like I have seen like in classes, I've seen more failures with those particular optics than any other brands.
Interesting.
Um, Either from emitters coming loose or adjustment screws, either the windage or the elevation screws coming loose and not holding zero. There's also been more excessive parallax in the glass on the Vortex optics than there has anything else. The Burris Fast Fires and the Bushnell, the really inexpensive Bushnell optics, have kind of been the same way. So it kind of leaves you like, well, you've got kind of two tiers of optics. You've got those in the Trigicon camp, go USA, Trigicon everything, or you've got the Holosun camp, which Holosun is the thing about Holosun is they're constantly building new stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's you're seeing things be designed and experimented with and tried a lot. I think one of the other optics that we haven't really talked about are like the SIG optics. And when the SIG optics first came out, especially pistol mounted optics, they weren't necessarily the most robust. I would say since then, SIG has done a pretty good job of listening to customers and learning and understanding, with testing that, hey, we weren't quite hitting the mark with these early optics, and we've seen a lot of improvement in the SIG optics, later down the road. So any of the Romeo 1 Pros, the Romeo 3 Maxes, most of those optics have been pretty robust.
Oh,
So
awesome. That's good to hear. Well, one more thing on the Holosun, and we can move on.
sure.
Have you by chance gotten to mess with one of the EPSs yet?
I have not. I actually don't have a gun that a Glock that it can utilize the EPS without the MOS plate or anything like that.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
I've just not. I've not. I've had a few students that have nothing but good things to say about them.
yeah, yeah.
But myself, no, I don't really have any much experience with those.
It's funny. So they're just now kind of coming available at a regular basis.
Hmm.
But I had hunted for one, and my favor of the red two MOA dots. Like, okay, I'll just get one of the regular two MOA dots and go with it. Now that I've been messing with the circle, it's funny. Now I might have to get the multi-reticle one. But long story short, it is a cool optic. I'm glad I have one. I've been building a kind of a dream Glock 19 carry gun, and just still waiting on the frame to get back from the surgeon.
Yeah.
But that thing's got the EPS on it. I've got all the new trigger guts that I want to put in there, and just, sir, you know who you are out there. Please send my frame to me. I promised I wouldn't email though, so I have not. But so yeah, that EPS is pretty cool. Now I will say this, because I've got two 507Ks and two 507Cs.
Hmm.
I've seen people say that the EPS was clearer glass. Now maybe the glass is clearer, but I can tell you this: mine has a little bit more green tint to it than my 507s. So, but still, a very that like you said, they're churning out new products.
Hmm.
And when Aaron
They're innovating
Cowan
quite a bit.
when Aaron Cowan can take that EPS and beat the holy crap out of it and not even crack the glass, there's something going on there, right?
Right.
And
Well, the other thing I'm most intrigued, and I would love, so like if anybody from Hollow Sun is listening to this, I would love to test the 507 competition, which is the
oh
new
yeah,
larger glass that Hollow Sun just released at SHOT Show. In fact, I'm so intrigued by that. I would be willing to remove my Trijicon SRO off of my Nighthawk and do like I would put the 507 on the 507 competition, the larger glass, the glass clarity, the fact that I can run the 2 MOA dot or the 32 MOA ring, and the fact that I can get it in green is like that. Just that kind of blows my skirt up quite a bit. So I'm very excited to get my hands on a 507 competition as soon as I can.
in other words, I can't remember if it has the hooded circle top like the 507C, or if it was straight
It's a little more straight.
or flat anyway. Yeah.
It's the same footprint though as any of the 507. So it's an RMR SRO footprint as far as how it mounts to things, but it's got a much larger glass. In fact, it's a couple of millimeters taller and a couple of millimeters wider glass than even the kind of the gold standard right now for competition optics, which is the SRO.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Well, that's cool. Yeah, I knew that was coming out, but I just flipped through YouTube and found a video of Scott Jedlinski running one through the paces a little bit.
Mhm.
But yeah, so yeah, Hollow Sun's been impressive for sure. But this isn't a Hollow Sun show. But this is the 32 MOA circle. They're the only ones that I know of that offer that. So well, so let's start getting around into some red meter shooting, and so one of the first things that I noticed and we can kind of burn through some of these things pretty quick, but
Sure.
I was curious. So watching some of your YouTube stuff or Instagram stuff, you got a ridiculously fast reload. Now, one thing that I've been noticing in competition is that I don't look at the mag well when I'm reloading, and I was curious. Now, I'm not saying that's what I'm meaning to do,
Hmm.
but it's just what I've started doing and noticing. I didn't even notice that I was doing it, and it's almost like whenever I look at the mag well, it's slowing me down. But I'm not a grandmaster either, so I'm curious. Are you looking at the mag well, or is that just
I do
some
look at the
sort of
Magwell.
other? Go
No,
ahead.
I do look at the Magwell. I look at the Magwell every single time I perform a reload. So,
Interesting.
and sometimes I think a lot of people think like look at the mag well becomes focus at the mag well,
Yeah.
right? So they're looking at and they're feeling like as long as unless I'm looking inside the mag well or I'm looking the magazine all the way into the mag well and then
Hmm.
seating it and then bringing my vision back to the target,
Hmm.
and that does and can cause you to slow down. When I'm reloading, like even at my fastest, I'm still when I pull the gun back. So I pull the gun back to here, and as soon as I've mashed the mag release and I've grabbed a new mag off the belt, I'm never looking down to find the magazine on the belt. Like that is done just
Hmm.
proprioceptively, right? So that
Hmm.
my support hand comes down and grabs the magazine, but I'm glancing right at the bottom of the gun, and I'm watching the magazine just get inserted into the bottom of the mag well. As soon as that top piece of brass disappears into the mag well, I'm done and my eyes are back on target again. So if I were
Hmm.
looking at the camera, it would be like camera are the sights and it would be back to here and then back to the camera again. So the change in visual accommodation or the change in focal points from target to the bottom of my hand or to the bottom of the magwell and back to the target again are so brief, but they are so important. Like
Hmm.
if I'm looking someplace else and trying to stab the mag in the gun, it is almost with 95 to 98% probability I'm going to miss the mag
Mm.
change. I'm going to miss it. I'm either going to
Interesting.
bobble in the magazine. I'm throwing the magazine on the ground. I'm not getting it in the magwell. A lot of times I'm soft seating it, so I'll get the magazine in, but I won't depress the mag in to push it into the mag release to click it in place. And of
Hmm.
course, I'll roll my hands too early, and the magazine will fall back out. Right. So those are all little mistakes that happen. I think a lot, like more often than not, when we take our attention away from looking at the bottom of the magwell to ensure that the magazine is inserted into the gun.
Cool. Well, that was an important question. Now, I guess then the next question is: are you kind of like as Frank Proctor kind of calls a workspace right here, where you're always do you try and index with your elbow against your side, or is it just an index
I
that
tend
you've
to
kind of?
I tend to like elbow to my side is too far in
Hmm.
for me.
Hmm.
So as I kind of back up here just a little bit, I pull my elbow all the way into my side, I've now got the gun too far into me
Yeah.
and I feel bound up here. So
Yeah.
for me, it's just where my bicep starts to make contact with my
Yeah.
pectoral muscle.
Yeah.
So, but I'm making that exact movement. But what I'm not doing is I'm not rotating the gun too much, or I'm not canting the gun too far either. I need gravity to do the most work it possibly can. So I'm going to keep
Hmm.
the gun as upright as possible to ensure that that old magazine drops completely free before rotating the gun in just slightly. And I want to point the magazine bottom, the magwell, towards the source of towards the source of new ammunition. So being
Hmm.
from the belt, I want to be able to grab the magazine from the belt and go directly into
Hmm.
the gun.
So
What I don't want to do is I don't want to have to bend this elbow this way, and I don't want to have to bend my wrist this way because those are different points of access that are going to cause me to fumble the mag
fumble.
change.
Well, and like you said earlier, your proprioceptive index from the magazine off of your belt, you're still creating that proprioceptive index with the 1 million times that you've done this with, maybe touching your pectoral to your bicep, but
Right.
you've still got an index. It's
So
just
I'm
not
pulling the
as
gun
deep
back
in.
from like here's my kind of my standard normal shooting stance
Hmm.
or position or structure. I'll pull
Hmm.
the gun back to right here. So
Hmm.
it's from here to here, approximately about 3 to 4 inches. I'm not
Oh
going to
yeah.
pull the gun in and I'm not going to pull the gun into my workspace really, really close to my face because
Hmm.
now I've changed and I've made those angles of attack between the magazine and the magwell like they're not consistent and they're going to be
Yeah.
really really sharp angles. So now I've got to grab the magazine and then I got to come in at a sideways
Yeah.
angle to be able to then get the mag seated and drive the gun back to target. So I want to just reduce that, kind of straighten out the curves as much as I possibly can to ensure
Sure.
that the magazine seats rapidly and repeatedly every single time, and it's consistent. I can get back on target quicker.
Awesome. Well, that's cool. So then this segues into my next question, which what we're really talking about there is probably reloads from competition rigs, probably not concealment. Now, I've also seen a video you talking about drawing from concealment under a t-shirt,
Hmm.
which is 99% of the time when I've got a gun on me, I've got an appendix underneath a t-shirt.
Right.
And so this brings up the reload concept from there. Now I'll tell on myself a little bit. So, IDPA finally is allowing appendix
Hmm.
carry, and I started doing that. I've only done it a couple of matches, but the last match I did, I was throwing magazines on the ground, but because I'm used to having my shooting vest, my shirt tucked in. I've got my outside the waistband holster. I've got my outside the waistband mag carriers here, no problem. But now get me shooting and needing to reload, and I'm fumbling with my shirt,
Hmm.
and I'm telling you, I got two PEs by throwing two magazines on the ground, and because I got them caught in my shirt.
Right.
So that's the question. What about reloads from under the shirt? Now, here, let me digress too. I know some people are going to say, in self defense, you're never going to need a reload. Well, okay, there's some data to point to that, but I'm talking about competition here, even
Sure.
even even from appendix and underneath the t-shirt.
So
And,
competitive reloads, like I mean, I've got a couple of videos I know, like on my YouTube channel, where somebody had reached out to me and asked me a couple of questions about, like, well, you don't seem, you do most everything from from a competition rig outside the waistband. Let's see you do this from
mm-hmm,
concealment, or let's see you do these reloads from concealment. And so I actually did a little YouTube short a few months ago where I was showing, kind of focusing on how I attack the magazines from being completely concealed. If I'm carrying appendix, I'm also going to carry my magazine's appendix as well.
okay,
So
okay, yeah,
if I'm lifting the shirt, I lift the shirt with my support hand so that I can drive my strong hand down on the back strap of the gun, lift the gun out of the holster. I'll let go of the shirt once the gun is clear of the holster and
mm-hmm,
build my grip up. When I'm going to do a mag change, it's the same concept. As soon as I pull the gun back, I'm going to hit the mag release. I'm going to grab my shirt kind of at the belly button again. I'm going to lift the shirt up to clear the magazine, and I'm going to use my hand to come down over the top of the mag in the belt. And then as soon as I grasp the magazine is clear of the shirt because my arm and hand have held the shirt captive, right? And it's held it out of the way. So as soon as I grab the magazine, then the magazine, of course, is inserted the same way, and I'm back on target again, ready to shoot.
so and it will come through just fine whenever we render this video for YouTube, but you were kind of, I think we had a little bit of a bad connection there. Now you were saying that once you're clearing the garment,
Mm-hmm.
but oh, and by the way, which was a great tip, I saw your video when you were saying, okay, as soon as you've cleared the shirt and with your appendix draw, just
Right.
release the shirt because you've already cleared the shirt, especially if you've got a nice vertical
Exactly.
pull from the holster. Your shirt can't get in the way.
Yep.
But I took that from your video and have been practicing that too. But you're saying something similar when it comes to the mag change
when
from
it comes to the mag
appendix.
when it comes to the magazine. Except, like, from appendix, you're using your support hand to lift the shirt out of the way so that your strong hand
Yep.
can come down on it. So when you're doing your reloads from appendix, you're actually just going to take your support hand and lift the shirt up, and you're going to kind of trap it behind your
Yeah.
wrist, and so
Yep.
you lift the shirt up and then race the hand back down to the magazine. And when you race the hand
Hmm.
down to the magazine, now my shirt is out of the way. I'm going to grasp the magazine, lift it out. I don't need to hold the shirt away anymore. The magazine is firmly in my hand because the pocket of my palm is what's going to make contact with the magazine first. So now it's
Mm-hmm.
holding the magazine completely. So even if the shirt kind of to drape back down over kind of the inside of my hand is immediately going to be able to pass right past the shirt, get the magazine inserted in the gun, and build my grip back up and continue shooting.
Awesome. Yeah, that's cool. That's similar to what I was going to work on because I haven't hit it that hard since I was working on it a little bit. I've got we've got the sponsor Tenacor of our show, and I've got an Abdo appendix mag pouch that's really cool, but I've still struggled a little bit with it, and you just gave me something to really work on. I'm sorry for getting a free pistol lesson from you
No,
over
that's
the
okay.
internet here,
That's all right.
but so and like I said, I want to kind of move through a few of these things a little quicker.
Sure.
But now Eric suggested this, and just humor me here when it comes to I've got a question about drill suggestions. And
Okay.
Eric said this was a selfish question, but I'm going to put it to you this way. So drill suggestions, and maybe they're the same. I don't know, but let's at least start the question by delineating this: drills that new shooters should work on, intermediate shooters, and then advanced shooters. Would you bifurcate those or delineate those, or is it how would you answer that question?
Ah, man. I mean, that's always tough because it really depends on what a shooter's goals are.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I I kind of get wrapped around the axle sometimes about the overuse of the word drill. Everybody
Mm-hmm.
wants and expects there to be a quote unquote drill
Mm-hmm.
to fix or to improve some particular aspect of their shooting.
Mm-hmm.
When in the reality is what's a drill consist of? The overwhelming majority of drills are draw the gun, present the gun, maintain a grip on the gun, and press the trigger without moving the sights, right? Whether you're transitioning the gun from one target to another or from one aiming point on a target to another aiming point on a target, whether you've got to learn how to manage recoil, right? So, like exercises themselves, I like to use the term exercise instead. Everybody's like, hey, man, I have a hard time being able to transition the gun. What drill would you recommend? Hey, I have a hard time, like, really, fixing my draw to first shot. What drill would I work on that? Hey, I really like to get my recoil control under control, and be able to mitigate recoil better. What drill would I work on? And it's like
Mm-hmm.
they use the word drill as a, dare I say, the easy button, right?
Yeah.
Well, if I just work this drill, it's like hitting the easy button and everything becomes simple. I don't have to actually put in the work. And
Mm-hmm.
so no matter what, you have to understand there are two different types of exercises, or dare I say, two different types of drills. There are performance oriented drills and there are diagnostic oriented drills, right? A performance drill can be a diagnostic drill if we take away one of kind of one of the things that we need to be focused on, whether it be speed or whether it be accuracy. But we need to take away one of those tangibilities to be able to focus on the other aspect on it. So if
Mm-hmm.
it's like, okay, I need to learn to be more accurate, okay, then take away the speed component of it and learn what it's like to shoot the gun more accurately. Okay, I need to learn to go fast. Okay, then take away the component of accuracy and just learn what it's like to go faster. But for the most point, drills are nothing more than tests of your ability to do a complexity of functions, whether it be
Mm-hmm.
drawing the gun, presenting the gun, building your support hand grip on the gun, and maintaining your visual acuity to what the sights are doing as you're pressing the trigger, whether it be one time, two times, five times, 10 times, whatever the case may be. So instead of trying to utilize a drill and be like, oh, I'm going to work on this drill, the problem with working on drills is because there is some sort of tangible goal. It's all A's in 2 seconds. It's I have to draw and fire the shot in 1 second. Well, then we draw and fire the shot in 1 second, but we don't realize or understand all of the little finer nuances of what it is that we're working on.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, honestly, you want to get better at the draw, learn how to establish a continuous grip or a continuous contact point or index to the same spot with the same part of the hand the same way every single time, right? Once you establish that, then how do I establish then lifting the gun from the holster and building my support hand to the same spot every single time? Great. Now put those two things together. Hands to gun, right? Strong hand to gun, gun lift from holster, support hand to the same spot. And then once I get those things, so you're microing every single little aspect
Mm-hmm.
of the drill so that you can stay 100% hyper focused on what's going on for that particular spot. What does it feel like to touch the gun here? If I reach down and I touch the gun differently, what does that feel like in my hand? I should know a bad draw before I've ever lifted the gun from the holster.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And if you're just trying to continuously like beat a drill or beat a par time on a drill, you're doing it wrong. You don't have your focus on the right thing.
Yeah, the whole, especially the draw process, is pretty intuitive to micro drill it. I guess
Right.
we can call it, and that is something I work on. I need to do it
But
more,
everything,
but yeah.
right? Everything. So thinking about like a bill drill, let's just look at it. Because that's been something I've been working on, the last 3 days. Thinking
Mm-hmm.
about something like a bill drill. The bill drill is a very complex task. You got to draw the gun. First of all, you've got to react to the start of the beep, right? I need to react as quickly as possible. I need to be as early on that beep as I possibly can and start hand movement as violently as I possibly can to the gun and get the gun out and presented to the target, right? Once I get the gun out to the target, I need to ensure that my support hand grip is holding the gun in such a way that I can start working and controlling the trigger on and off for 6 consecutive rounds to keep the gun from moving or keep my strong hand from driving the gun down or high or left or right, whatever the case may be, while my support hand is establishing such a grip and structure on the gun to allow the gun to just oscillate in recoil. At the
Mm-hmm.
same time, I also need to operate the trigger. So I need to press the trigger. I need to release the trigger. I need to press the trigger. I need to release the trigger over and over and over again for 6 consecutive presses without missing one step in between. While doing all of that, I also visually need to be tracking what the sights are doing throughout that entire recoil process over and over and over again for six consecutive shots. Right? So when you really break down what the bill drill truly is, it's not just throw the gun at a holster, throw the gun out of the holster, align it to the target kind of natural point of index and whack the trigger 6 times. There's other finer nuances that are lost in the bill drill because people are just chasing an arbitrary time.
Hmm. Well,
So think
and
about the drill. Oh yeah, I want to get better at recoil management. Great. And somebody will say, do a bill drill. Okay. Well, if I'm doing a bill drill, what's a good bill drill? Oh, if you can do it in 2 seconds or less. Oh, great. Okay. Well, I can have absolutely horrendous sight and recoil management and I have an absolutely horrendous grip on the gun and still be able to fire 6 shots in sub 2 seconds. So what did I learn from that? Now I may not all have all those hits hit the A zone, but what I'm saying is like, okay, great. I performed the bill drill, and then we start to play games with ourselves. We start to say things like, oh, it's just one little Charlie that's outside the A zone, or oh, it's just one down one. They weren't all down zeros. That was pretty good. That's solid, right? And then we kind of accept mediocrity, so to
mm-hmm.
speak, or
Yeah.
we've lost our ability to micro all of those things. So if I said, okay, cool, in order to improve your build drill, I don't want you even thinking about the draw. I want you to go ahead and have the gun established on target, and I want you to press the trigger and watch the sights lift and return. And then I want you to press the trigger and watch the sights lift and return. And it's not watching the sights lift all the way through the recoil process and return. It's the moment that the sights lift and the moment the sights return. And then I want you to start doing that faster. So as you press the trigger, you're going to watch the sights lift. And as soon as the sights lift, then it becomes a very chaotic movement, right? Or a chaotic motion. But when the sights or the dot come right back down to the spot that you are looking at, I don't want you to hesitate. You should be ready to press the trigger again.
Hmm.
And then you're going to do that again and again and again. Now we've started to build the visual cues that we need to see during the build drill. And if I'm starting to lose sight of those things, fix your grip. Go back and isolate just your grip or just your hand pressures on the gun. Adjust and play with those, right? Then go back and do it again. So there's a multitude of ways to work the build drill that isn't just fire 6 shots as rapidly as you can from the holster at 7 yards
Hmm.
and see what you get.
Well, it's interesting. So I'm backing up and starting from the beginning and just translating what I hear is that, and it does make sense. Lots of people are concerned about the result of the build drill. It's a very simple drill. We've
Everybody,
we we've
everybody. It's not even lots of people.
Yeah,
Everybody, Aaron, does the same thing.
yeah.
They do a drill, and it's like they hear a time and they hear an accuracy stamp, and then they're just like, okay, so if I just put those two things together, I've done great. And it's like, okay, no, you've done parlor
Part
trick.
of it, yeah, yeah.
You've done part of it, but you've missed out on all of the learning that actually happens to be able to really grasp what that drill is designed to do.
Well, even one simple thing, and this is, I think, just one aspect of what you're going to learn from it, is allowing the dot or the sights to teach you what's wrong with your grip,
Right.
things like that, because you're focused on the process, not excuse me, not letting the dot teach you something.
Correct. You're focused on the result, not the process.
Excuse me. So yeah, that's awesome. I think that answers the question better than I think I even put it. So that's awesome. I'm thinking about, so real quick. I have an order of questions here, but I'm going to kind of take it out of
Okay.
order real quick. So real quick. So you were talking about that you were working 13, 1,500 rounds. I can't remember over the last handful of days on that build drill, speaking of, but
Hmm.
it's at your own range too. We were talking a little bit before. So you have recently, or how long ago, you built a range at your
So yeah,
house?
I built like a full pistol range or shooting range out here in my property in here in New Mexico. I want to say back in it must have been October or early November. So I've had it now about 3 months, 3 months or
Oh
so.
man.
So
So a brand new toy.
yep, yep. It's been something I've been working on for a long time. So we bought this house and property because of the land that it came with, knowing that like eventually once we got kind of the house done, then we were like my next big project was going to be building the range. So I had every intention of getting the range built in 2020, but we other irons in the fire, so to speak. We had some exterior stuff we really needed to do to the house, to continue to make the house livable. So then I was like, okay, cool. In 2021, I'm ready to build the range. And in 2021 happened, and we really needed to do some exterior work on the home. So my range budget got, kind of
Mm-hmm.
negated
Mm-hmm.
to like doing some other home improvement stuff. So 2022 came, and I'd saved up and built my my little nest egg again to really focus on getting the range done. And then it was just kind of like right time at the right place with the right people. We were able to kind of align like building, getting everything done to build the range this year, or this past year. And so that's what we did. So I built 3 pistol bays or 3 shooting berms. And they're not just like straight back berms. I've got like 180 degrees I can shoot left and right. Everything just like a range has. I built a ton of different props and walls and fault lines and things, so I can actually host matches out here. We can work one on one or in small groups, or actually be able to host full classes out here as well. And also kind of look forward to eventually being able to host other instructors out here as well. So, and kind of having a a full on training facility for, not only myself and students, but also for other instructors to be able to host classes for students.
Man, that's awesome. And that's every shooter's dream right there. Walk out in your, I have a great range that I'm a member of, but it's 30 minutes away. And I'll tell you, that's great for other people. You only have to
Sure.
drive 30 minutes to your range. But man, if I could walk out in my backyard and shoot, and it's and what you're talking about, like you said, just describing it there, you can tell it's not your normal. You know, I got some land and I'm putting some berms up, and grab a backhoe and
Right.
you you were saying that you've got some good stuff there. 25-yard bays, three of them,
The
and
bays are
quite a bit
about
of
25
space.
yards deep, so they're predominantly, like handgun or pistol bays. But the side berms come back, 25 yards. The width of the berms of each three bay, I've got three kind of different sizes, kind of based on like what my needs are. So I've got one that's about 18 yards wide or so by 25 yards deep. I got another one that's like 12 or 13 yards wide, so kind of a narrow guy. But it's great for when I just want to work on my own. I don't need to cover a lot of ground or set up a bunch of things. So it's about 12 yards wide by 25 yards deep. And then I've got another one that's 15 yards wide by 25 yards deep. So, and then I actually have a practice and training berm directly in my backyard, like here in, like just outside my garage. So I can walk right out my garage. And instead of having to go even a quarter mile on the property to the range, I've got my own backyard berm. It's kind of an L-shaped berm that I can shoot all the way back to about 70 yards into that berm too.
Man, there's a lot of jealous people listening right now. I can tell you that, and there's one of them right here. Well, that's super cool. Now, okay, so real quick, this is you were talking about your appendix rig earlier. We're talking about appendix drawing and appendix reloading. Now, so that brings me to the question, a fun question. So what's your normal carry rig, your EDC, so to
So I've
speak?
got two. My primary carry rig for the longest time had been a Glock 48 with iron sights. I don't use the shield arms magazines or anything. I'm just a
Yep.
standard 10 round Glock magazines with a Glock 48 in a Dark Star Gear hitchhiker holster. So, and as far as extra mag pouch or extra mag carrier, I'm using one of John Hopman from Philster, one of his what do you call them? I think a skeleton mag pouch is what I'm
Okay.
carrying, and of course they're two separate components. Um, I work a lot with Nighthawk Custom
Mm-hmm.
with 1911s, and I shoot for Nighthawk. And I found myself acquiring a 1911, a Nighthawk GRP 1911 that has got their iOS cut for an optic plate if I want to put an optic on it later. That is chambered in 30 super carry, and for
Oh,
that 30 super carry for that 1911, my friend Riley Bowman, who owns concealcarry.com, they also purchased recently acquired KSG Armory, which is KSG holsters. And so Riley just kind of like currently made me a KSG Lexington appendix holster for me to be able to carry my Nighthawk GRP. And so I'm actually going to start carrying that 1911 appendix for quite a while. And that's actually what I'm probably going to utilize and carry at TacCon, the
oh,
Evans's tactical conference in Dallas in March.
oh yeah. Well, you're kind of taking me into another subject, but now, so real quick, so yeah, that's interesting, and I like that you. So one of my main carry rigs, especially as I'm building my new 19, is a 48,
Mm-hmm.
and with everything that I had heard, um, the the 15 round mags from their shield wasn't it?
Shield arm.
I forget. That sounds really cool, but when you get down to it, it's 11 rounds of 9 millimeter. Yeah, that's not a ton, but it's going to cover about what most people would ever need.
Hmm.
and you're not messing with the reliability of the pistol,
Right.
etc. But so, and then one, I guess one more question: what kind of belts do you like?
So I've predominantly been using and for a number of years and carrying on a Dominate Defense, their EDC Ranger belt. So, which
Okay.
is my absolute favorite, and not, and I've tried everything else. I've tried everything from Blue Alpha Gear to the Neo belt to any of the others, and honestly, the for me personally, I really like the Dominate Defense belt. I can adjust it a little bit at a time. It's got a very finite adjustment. So it's got a very small strip of kind of elastic that wraps around a simple hook and loop buckle. So the hook and loop buckle's got like 1 inch increments, so I can tighten or loosen this stuff on it as well. But with that little strip of the little strip of elastic on there as well allows the belt to be comfortable and allow it to kind of flex when I'm bending over or sitting in a car or kneeling down to tie my shoes or whatever the case is, and allow the gun to kind of flex but stay nice and tight up against me without like
Hmm.
completely strangulating my abdomen by
Yeah,
having the
yeah.
gun too tight in on the belt. So that's the belt I recommend to everybody is the Dominate Defense, their EDC Ranger belt.
Awesome. I'll have to give that a gaggle. Well, so we're getting pretty close to time here, Tim. Man, such a fun bit of content we've had here, and I'm looking forward to hearing it again as a listener.
Awesome.
And but now, so you brought up TacCon, which Eric and I will be there. This will be our first time going to TacCon.
Excellent.
For the training junkies in the country. I mean, it most people TacCon is just ridiculously cool, and you just got to be at the right place at the right time to make sure you can get one of the tickets. They sell out really fast. But so yeah, it's interesting, buddy. Eric had signed up for one of you've got, I think I'm looking at the schedule. I think you've got 3 different blocks here,
Uh-huh.
and he tried to get in one, and I guess however Tom handed out the schedule, he didn't get in one. But man, I'll tell you what, that one-handed shooting, and actually I put that on my list too. But yeah, that one-handed shooting, that's going to be a good class. And you were talking about earlier the shot calling. So
Hmm.
there's going to be a couple of really cool classes, one-handed shooting, and you're going to
Throttle
teach that.
control and shot calling. So that was a block that I carried over from last year. So I taught that 4 hour block of throttle control and shot calling um, twice last year. So I kind of doubled up on that and taught it on Friday and Saturday of last year's TacCon to pretty rave reviews. Like everybody really got something out of that. So I wanted to continue that on again, but I also wanted to kind of freshen up the curriculum a little bit and be able to offer something else too. So one of the other things I guess I'm kind of well known for is my one-handed shooting techniques and being able, like my not only my techniques but my skill level of being able to shoot one-handed. So I've been asked by a multitude of people, like, man, it'd be really cool if you broke that down into like a 2 hour, like a 2 hour block to offer maybe a tactical conference. And I was like, hey, yeah, I'll talk to Tiffany and I'll put that one on as well. So I'll be teaching a 4 hour block of the of throttle control and shot calling, and then 2 2 hour blocks of the uh, one-handed shooting success. So
That's really cool. Now, yeah, boy, when you look at this schedule, it's just incredible what you have to choose from. But you got to
absolutely
sit there. But you got to make choices that you don't want to make either, right?
right.
Line it all out. And I'll be honest, I love to shoot, but I am really wanting to get to a lot of the lectures, like Caleb Causey's EDC Medical, and get to one of, at least try to get to Masad Ayoub's. I'm pretty sure now. Don't, yeah, his lessons from recent cases, etc.
Hmm.
I love the lectures, and then John Hearn. I'm going to make sure I hit one of his lectures. But
Yes.
I guess the main question here is, selfishly, for Eric and I, our first time going to TacCon, and anyone else that's listening, what tips would you have? Because I know that a lot of us are like, okay, especially Eric and I, who have made all these acquaintances over these many shows. We're wanting to hang out and see everybody we can, but I know it's not going to be that easy because it's going to be so hectic. So, in other words, again, what
So
kind of tips would you have for newcomers?
couple of the tips are is to know where your classes are at, right? So you get your class schedule and things like that. Show up early Thursday evening, right? So that, or I say early Thursday evening. Show up Thursday evening as early as you can to get checked in, get your name badge and things like that, and be ready to go. Friday morning starts all of the fun, right? So you're learning all day Friday, all day Saturday, all day Sunday. The great thing about all of the lectures is they're open seating. There's
Mm-hmm.
no requirements on those. I'm planning on personally myself being able to get into a significant amount of lectures and classrooms that I didn't get to do the last couple of years because I'm generally busy teaching.
Mm-hmm.
Um, the shooting courses themselves are great, and everybody loves to shoot. But I will tell you that the thing about tactical conference is that every shooting class is not a full on class. It's a 4 hour kind of like, dare I say, almost like a charcuterie board of classes.
Mm-hmm.
It's to give you a taste test of what it's like to take a full on class with that instructor. So there's
Mm-hmm.
so many people who are like, oh man, I can't wait to do every shooting class I possibly can, or listen into just the shooting classes. And it's like, yes, but you're not getting the gist of everything that that shooting class has to offer in a 2 hour or 4 hour block. Those 4 hour blocks themselves, you figure you've got a 20 to 30 minute safety brief. And then every block, like a 4 hour block, also needs to dismiss the students about 20 to 30 minutes early so that they
Mm-hmm.
can get to their next class on time. So, really, even on
Mm-hmm.
a 4 hour block, you're only getting about 3 hours of actual instruction. You're also
Interesting.
doing that with 20 to 24 students, 26 students. So you're like getting one on one with each instructor or getting hands on with the instructor. It's not like the real thing with the actual instructors of like say
Mm-hmm.
an 8 hour day or a 16 hour 2 day course. So take the shooting classes and be obviously be willing to learn and take a lot of notes. But the other thing is like don't like everybody wants to shoot and they want to bring their guns and ammo and do those kind of things. So they'll dismiss a lot of the actual classroom portions of things.
Mm-hmm.
The other thing too is don't completely block out your entire day with I must have this class and I must have that class and I must do this, or you're going to burn yourself out by day two. You're going to be like, I'm just so over inundated and overwhelmed with information. I don't even know what to do with it all. And then you're following such a tight line schedule that you're forgetting that we're all here to have some fun too, right?
Mm-hmm.
So definitely bring your gun and ammo so that you can shoot the match, and
Mm-hmm.
definitely don't miss your block to be able to shoot the match. You're
Yep.
also going to, everybody takes a break and they do the shoot off on Sunday. But take things that may not necessarily interest you. Like
Mm-hmm.
I personally have never been like a big like hand to hand jujitsu guy, and I've honestly never really been a shotgun guy. It's just like okay, great, I know how to shoot shotgun. I've shot trap and skeet and things like that before. But last year I took Ashton Ray and Tim Chandler's Shotgun 360 4 hour course, and I borrowed Ashton's shotgun and I borrowed some ammo from a fellow student, and I had a ball learning about
Awesome.
something that I had never done before, right? It's awesome to be like in the newbie seat, the complete rookie,
Mm-hmm.
and it was awesome. The other thing I did is I took Cecil Birch's Just Enough Jits class.
Mm-hmm.
I'd
Mm-hmm.
never had much mat time. The last time I ever had time on a mat was when I was in junior high in wrestling. So
Yeah.
like here I am now at the tender age of 45, getting rolled up into a ball by, and my training partner for that afternoon was none other than Scott Jedlinski. So Scott was my training partner. Cecil Birch and Larry Lindenman were my two instructors. So like, how cool is it that my
Mhm.
very first ever foray into like Brazilian Jiu Jitsu, even if it's a 3 hour, 4 hour kind of intro class, is with two of the most predominant instructors to walk the earth, and
Mhm.
then a phenomenal friend and and peer in Scott Jedlinski, who is also a very well respected jujitsu practitioner, and he's a brown belt, and
Yep.
that's my training partner. How
Yeah.
awesome is that? So I mean, step out on a limb, do some things that you
Yeah.
wouldn't necessarily do, and just have a ball doing it. The other thing is ensure that you're hanging out at the hotel, like after hours. There are tons of cool conversations and phenomenal people to meet at the event hotel.
Awesome.
So, and they've got an open bar down there. I mean, you could get down there, like you. Next thing you know, you're sipping a bourbon and talking to like John and Vicky Farnham, and I mean, like how neat is that? You just it's not necessarily even a class setting, but you're rubbing elbows with a lot of the who's who of the training industry,
Yeah.
and not just the latest up and comers in the training industry, but a lot of the folks that like, man, you may have never heard about, or folks that you may have always wanted an opportunity to train with that just don't do open enrollment classes anymore.
Mhm.
It's an amazing experience.
Yeah, it's funny when I didn't know what to expect when Tom and Tiffany send out the note, "Hey, you need to sign up for these shooting classes that you want, and here's your order, etc." I thought, I put 4 in there, and I thought, man, I know Tom well enough that I was thinking, man, is Tom going to come back and say, "You chose these 4, you're going to have to take all 4 of them," but
Right.
but but no, I think I got handed 3 classes, but and I'm not just, people may think I'm just trying to be cool and say I'm not as into the shooting, but I really am not. I am excited about the classroom stuff. I took a class. I was honored to be able to take one of the few classes that Tom Givens, Craig Douglas, and the late great William April taught, called the Establishing Dominance Paradigm class.
Hmm.
My favorite portions of that weekend were the lectures from Dr. April.
Most definitely.
So I'm looking forward to experiencing some of that stuff. I mean, at the Tom Givens Range Master Instructor courses, we've taken the first one and then the advanced one. I loved the lectures. So,
Oh yeah.
but
Oh yeah.
yeah, so
Tons more to
hope
learn from the lectures, I think, than there is even in just the shooting.
yeah, the shooting parts, that's the fun stuff. But I mean, if we really want to learn, I mean, to have that smorgasbord of lectures available, and hey, I'm just going to go see this one, and it's going to be a blast.
Yep.
Well,
100%.
Well, Tim, I think I've taken enough of your time, but man, what a fun conversation. It's amazing to have people like you that will spend time with us. We couldn't have a show without guys like you. So thanks for your time.
Oh, I appreciate it.
And
Thank you
man,
for having me.
so here in 2 months, hopefully can run into you in person. I just know it's gonna be hectic that those 3 days, but
That's okay.
I'll
Come
I'll
find me or I'll come look for you guys. And I'd love to be able to shake hands and hugs and get to meet you guys for sure.
Oh yeah, there's going to be a lot of people I want to meet, and you are one of them.
Awesome.
So, well, buddy, you have a good evening, and we will talk to you soon. We have lots of repeat offenders. This is your second time, and it's not going to be your last.
Fantastic.
You have
I'd
a,
love to come back again.
all right, buddy. You have a good evening.
Thank you. You too.